Welcome back to coverage here of the Magic Online Champion Showcase. Corey Ballmeister, Arya Karamchandani, bringing you coverage here of round number 1 here of the Vintage Cube. We're going to dive right in. Let's take a look at our two players that we're going to be seeing immediately, and it is Jesse Hampton versus Luna Ruben. And both these players qualified via standard showcase for Jesse and leaderboard for Ruben. I mean, I think that's the hardest way to qualify. You got to be doing good in so many of these events. So really impressive stuff there from Moon 11. Jesse's been playing for 17 years. Ruben 410. Similar lifetime win percentages and pretty similar lifetime matches. So both players know exactly how to play the best game in the world, Magic the Gathering. So let's take a look at Jesse's deck. A little reminder, we just saw them, but Arya, walk me through this deck here a little bit more.
Yeah, so this is kind of your archetypical Vintage Cube deck. In this iteration of Vintage Cube, you've got a lot of fast mana, and you've got a bunch of snowballing threats you're trying to get into play as early as possible. You've got like Satya, Aetherflux Genius, you've got like Fear of Missing Out, Lingus. You're just trying to get one of these cards down early and have them kind of take over the game. And just a bunch of individually powerful rate cards and interaction beyond that. Pretty straightforward, really strong version of the deck, and that's definitely going to be Jesse's game plan going into these games.
I love the old Kaido Fourth Ear Lingus deck. Just makes me feel good, that's for sure. So let's take a look at Moon 11's list. We saw this one as well. They were next to each other here in the draft. This is the Golgari deck, where we got that second pick MOCS Jet and passed that third pick MOCS to Jesse. So who do you like in the matchup here, Arya?
Well, I'd say that of the two decks, Jesse's deck is definitely the stronger one, has the higher ceiling, but Ruben's deck matches up pretty well into Jesse's. These sort of black-green, mid-rangey, grindy decks are pretty well favored into the, like, sort of, play fast mana, play threat, that kind of decks in general. There's not that much interaction from Ruben, so, you know, that's a bit of a weakness in this matchup. Sometimes Jesse's threats will just run away with the game. I'd say Jesse is lightly favored here, just by virtue of how much, like, how much higher the ceiling on his deck is, just the raw power of some of the cards, but it's a lot closer than you'd expect given how the black-green deck maybe matches up better into this four-color deck than most decks would.
Yep, checks out to me, but of course you always got to play the game when it comes to Vintage Cube, because really anything can happen. So let's dive in. Round number 1 here of the MOCS. I am absolutely stoked. Looks like we got Jesse Hampton on the bottom and Ruben Luna on the top. Ruben Luna on the play with a nice keep on 7 and 6 cards for Jesse.
Yeah, and this is exactly like playing out how the matchup ends up going, more so than the individual strengths of the decks, where like we see this hand from Jesse, some powerful cards, but force of negation really not what you want to be doing into a deck like this. You really don't want to be just trading 2 for 1 against something. You want to kind of be 1 for 1ing them a bunch. And on the other hand, we have Ruben with just interaction, really important here, and just grindy value out of something like 6, also just very, very valuable.
And then we have Channel as well, and most of the time you're always just like, oh my god, Channel, yes, this is going to be amazing, but Ruben Luna's deck is not the best Channel deck I've ever seen, you know? Like, you can ramp into like an Ugin, you know, if Ruben were to have top decked that, amazing. Of course, it would have ran into a Force, but outside of that, nothing too special, and looks like Jesse is really prioritizing keeping a blue card in hand just to make sure that Force of Negation is active, so didn't even cast our powerful 2/1 flyer and just goes for Dak Faden instead. Gets to draw 2 cards, discard 2 cards, and go from there. But hey, 6 is going to get to attack, and I mean, 6 is no slouch when it comes to getting some good advantage.
Yeah, I mean, this lines up really well for Ruben here, where 6 both, in ways that he doesn't even get to know about, where 6 shut down this Malcolm because can't attack, the 2/1 flyer can't attack into a 2/4 reach creature, and the 2/4 stat line prevented that from being like potential of a 4th Aeolingus this turn, so just really great stat line here all around. And now we're gonna get to see like removal held up. Maybe we'll see something like an Archon found the channel with the off the 6. So yeah, really good spot for Ruben.
And on the other side from Jesse, we do have a nice little play lined up. Able to Emperor of Bones, exile your own gigantic dinosaur in your yard, and then bring it back. I mean, that's a pretty nice play. Of course, it does go away, but you get that immediate Discover 5.
Yeah, Emperor of Bones really strong here.
Yeah.
Would have been nice to maybe could have been really nice for Jesse if there'd been something big milled off the 6 here, more so than the Connoisseur to bring back. But even so, pretty good means that there's not really a window where Ruben can safely tap out for the next while. This Infernal Grasp would stop the Emperor, but yeah, as long as that's a card that's present, there's just no window for Ruben to safely tap down, and could even get punished for doing so.
Yep, and the Llanowar Elf and the Canker Bloom in the yard can be retraced at any time, so all these extra lands can always represent cards in the yard. It's definitely a valuable thing. Maybe Ruben wants to start doing a little accelerating, turn one of these lands into a Llanowars. Looks like that's what we're going to do. Maybe Canker Bloom coming down. And Canker Bloom's a nice one.
Yeah. Just more pressure here is pretty nice, but it is awkward that this means there's no interaction being represented for the Emperor.
Yeah, no kidding. Emperor looked like it's going to be able to do its thing. Drawing some cards here from Jesse, almost assuredly just getting rid of maybe some extra lands here. Still no white source for Fourth Earlingus. That's the card that kind of just puts a hammer hold on a matchup like this or a board state like this. But it's hard for me to not want to just do the Emperor of Bones play. But I think Jesse's probably looking over deck lists right now like, hey, for 1 mana, how can you interact? Because if there's a Fatal Push in the list, something like that, you know, maybe you get a little afraid to go for it. Because if you respond to that Adapt, you know, you do not get the card.
Yeah, I think the fact that I believe the only 1 mana interaction in Ruben's deck is Bone Shards, which is a sorcery, means I think Jesse's pretty safe to go for it here, and gets to have Force of Negation up for something like that channel.
Yeah, beautiful. So here it is, seeing if we're going to, wow, doesn't even go for it right now. Interesting. Is there other kind of timing, you know, spots that Jesse wants to go for this? Like maybe, you know, Emperor Bones doesn't really do the trick where you can put it in an end step and then have it for your next turn. It looks like it's just Jesse being very conservative here, huh?
Yeah, I think that might have also been an issue where if you look at the stops, there might not have been a beginning of combat stop for Jesse, so there wasn't an interval to put that Trumpeting Connoisseur into play and have it attack this turn, which is a little awkward.
That would be very awkward. Or we're going for a block here. Maybe trying to do something like that.
Yeah, this does represent a block here, and Force of Negation means it's pretty safe to go for the block here even. There need to be like 2 instant speed removal spells, which again I don't think are in Ruben's deck. So
and you have to go for it here. You kind of have to go for it here, right? Because otherwise 6 can kind of just start doing some work in the second main phase.
Yeah, also just getting to eat both these creatures is just incredibly strong. You know there's no 2 removal spells that could be in Ruben's hand, and yeah, you're gonna have a 4/4 and a 6/5, not to mention the Discover, so just like both of these threats immediately off the tables, kind of ideal for Jesse. This is pretty perfect.
Was this kind of a spot where Jesse, like, you know, air quotes, got Ruben here? Or was this, you know, like a pretty forced play? Ruben thought the grass was going to be good enough?
I would say Jesse got Ruben here, but I don't think Ruben had much of a choice than to go for it with the Infernal Grasp. There needed to be specifically Force of Negation plus blue card in hand for Jesse, and there was, so nothing really to be done about that for Ruben. But yeah, it's hard to imagine coming back from being this far behind.
Yeah, and 6, you know, couldn't have brought back the Bone Shard or anything as it is permanent only, so it wouldn't have been the worst deal to come back, but man, now this looks incredible. If you can ninjutsu back your Emperor of Bones and then do it again, that feels pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know if that's necessary at this point.
It doesn't seem like it.
I think all Jesse wants here is a white source to cast that 4 Lingus and just end the game.
How about a Pyrograph? Does that look good?
And Pargo's pretty good too, just, casual, what, like 4 points of damage here or something like that.
Yeah. 4 points of damage. Maybe can kill the Fanatic of Ronus. Then you just have the battlefield advantage. You have the Planeswalker advantage. You just have everything going on. But wow, Fourth Earling gets to the yard. Says, you know what? I can win the game with Kaido and Paragoyf and Spellkeeper to get something back. Spellkeeper representing the fact that it can just go get and cast Reanimate like on the same turn seems great.
Yeah, it's pretty messed up, and I don't really think there's any coming back from this for Ruben. There's enough damage being dealt here that I think channeling something is not really going to be that much of an out. Maybe specifically channel Archon on this one turn provides something of a chance, but yeah, it's looking really tough. This is not quite on board lethal, but close to it for next turn.
Yep. Got rid of the Fanatic, also ate it, so it's not going to be able to come back eternalized or anything. And now, whoa, Pest Infestation. Does that do anything? I mean, we could channel and do a gigantic Pest Infestation, but there's still a flyer, so that's not ideal. What do you do here?
Yeah, I don't think Pest Infestation is really buying that much here for Ruben, other than maybe making some 1/1s and getting some time. The fact that this Fairy Mastermind can chip in the air means I really don't want to best channel and pay my life for a huge Pest Infestation here. It's just so much. It's just such a risky play that's not doing particularly more to stabilize than Pest Infestationing for 4 and making a bunch of tokens.
And just Corpse Stance, being able to bring back 6 right now and get a little attack in, sure. Yeah, nothing really too exciting. I guess channel and get Corpse Stance for 6, and then maybe start casting, other creatures from the yard. Maybe this gets into some territory where it could be decent. But yeah, I think I'm pulling at strings here. This is looking quite bad. Game number 1 for Ruben.
Yeah, a Pest Infestation for like a medium number here could be decent. Like just present blockers for the Emperor and Paragoyf to buy time that way. It's not, you're not going like as all in, you're not paying down to like, you're paying down to more life than it would take to get hit with Fairy Mastermind twice, so that looks pretty good for Ruben. We know about the Kaido, so that's really not going to work out, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's going to change the clock by at least 1 extra turn, as you can hit for 2 and then hit for 3 the next turn, no problem. So we'll have that avenue to make this a 2-turn clock at the very least from Jesse. But yeah, Pest Infestation, a bunch of pests. It's always sad when Pest Infestation doesn't destroy a single thing, where it is just putting some creatures into play. But here it is.
Yeah, in the spot for Jesse, I kind of wonder whether we might even see a Pyrogoyf attack. Just because if a bunch of pests get put in front of the Pyrogoyf to kill it, then you can Spellseeker reanimate the Pyrogoyf to win the game. You can make sure Ruben doesn't gain a ton of life by just stacking up a bunch of damage on one pest. So you still get to maintain your 2-turn clock if you want to.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, I was going to say you gain at least 4 life there, but yeah, you can just kill 1 pest, put Luna up to 5. Yeah, that is a spicy line. We'll see if Jesse goes for it or sees it.
Yeah, the only issue is if your Pyrogoyf gets chumped by one pest, then you're sort of slowing down your clock because you only get 3 in with Kaido this turn, plus 2 from Mastermind, so I would not say it's a 0 risk line.
Yeah, but I think just attacking with Pyrogoyf, like you're either blocking with it and only taking out 1 pest anyways, so there's definitely a choice to be made here. Dak Faden looking to discard a couple of these cards, seeing if we want to discard Tishana and Mountain, or maybe MOCS and Mountain, get rid of both mana sources. I think that's what Jesse's considering right now.
Yeah, it would be nice to be able to like recast the Spellseeker maybe. So like that's a consideration for keeping a mana source here. Sorry, recast the Fairy Mastermind after you ninjutsu it.
Oh,
I think that's a consideration for keeping the mana source here, and I like that. And yeah, leaving open Spellseeker to get something if the plays line up in a way where that matters is nice, but you don't have to commit to it. If the Kaido line ends up being better, you can just take that.
Emperor Bone's going to get to eat a free thing, and that is the top creature. So now Corpse Dance could only bring back Cankerbloom, which is quite bad. Looks like we didn't want to go for the Goyf.
Disciplined play from Jesse here. Just going for 2-turn lethal. I don't think there's anything off Spellseeker. Is there maybe like a Burst Lightning or something in the deck?
I
don't
there
think
was
there's anything.
He last picked Burst Lightning, but I don't know if it made the deck. And nope, the Unholy Heat made the deck. So yeah, that's not in there, but it is in Jesse's sideboard. So we'll have to call a judge, of course, if we search for it.
Yeah, so in Jesse's seat, I'm just looking to prevent Ruben from running away with the game. And Occult Epiphany is actually perfect. Because
okay, what are we doing here?
What that does is it lets you have lethal through a removal spell on the Fairy Mastermind. We just put a 1/1 into play, and then if there's a removal spell on the Mastermind, you can just attack with that 1/1 and ninjutsu to Kaido. Notably, removal spell does not stop that from being lethal because Kaido has Hexproof on your turn.
Yes, okay. Love that. And yeah, with the lands here and the fact that Cankerbloom is really the only option here, I'm not seeing a way out where it looks like we're going to get game number 1 here. I guess if we attack with all 12 tokens and Jesse decides to block, 3 of them, basically as long as Jesse doesn't block like at all, we should be all good here.
Yeah, and even if Jesse does block, I think he would still have lethal unless he literally blocks 3 tokens, where, Occult Epiphany plus to make a 1/1, then Kaido ninjutsu returning that presents 5 damage, so this is still lethal.
Okay, perfect. And the Corpse Dance isn't going to really do anything. Here comes the Epiphany. Draw a card, discard a card, create a token, Dark Ritual to the bin, and this should be our finisher here. Kaido bouncing the Spirit, Fairy Mastermind and Kaido dealing 5 damage.
Yep, this should do it. I don't believe there's cards that are in... I don't believe there's cards in Ruben's deck to even worry about in this spot, so... Yeah, should be good for
like it. Yeah, I'm not seeing a single card that would actually stand in the way. So Jesse knows the coast is clear. This is going to be our member of Team Handshake Moxfield getting the first game. So looking at the sideboards here, starting with Ruben Luna, is there anything that's very obvious to come in against a style of deck like this? Or kind of vice versa for Jesse? Anything standing out to you?
One thing I definitely imagine comes in for Jesse is that Ghost Vacuum. I believe there was one in the sideboard, and that's definitely the first thing I want in this matchup. There's just a lot of graveyard stuff, and we saw how much the incidental graveyard interaction did there. Burst Lightning makes a lot of sense. It's cheap interaction for the mana docs out of Ruben's deck. Ruben's definitely a big mana deck, so kind of relying on that persistent mana generation. So yeah, Burst Lightning pretty nice, and then it's a little awkward that it lines up so badly against the top end in Ruben's deck, where 2 is good for killing the cheap creatures, but 4 is not a particularly good breakpoint for killing things like Abomination, Uge, and Archon, but still a card I'm pretty happy to play. And then, that and Ghost Vacuum are the main things I'm interested in. Meanwhile, Ruben unfortunately does not have an abundance of playables. In his sideboard.
Cards I want are already in my deck here from Ruben Luna, it seems like.
Yeah, the sideboard options are just other similar, kind of generic mid-rangey cards. Deathrite Shaman is nominally graveyard interaction, but I'm not very happy to have that in, given since Deathrite Shaman is not mana-less, it's not actually very effective as incidental graveyard hate the way something like Emperor of Bones is, where it kind of picks away at the graveyard regardless of what your opponent's doing or whether you're actually sinking mana into it and activating it.
Well, I'm not sure if Jesse didn't see the ghost vacuum because we never saw him scroll down to like check where the artifacts are. Jesse did not put the vacuum in there, but I'm with you, Arya. That seems like a really nice one to me. As I mean, there are solid ways that Ruben Luna is bringing back creatures. So yeah, seems wild to me. It seems like maybe a oversight because I'm looking at the deck list right now. Ghost vacuum is in that sideboard.
Yeah, it could be that Jesse's just thinking about this matchup in more in a grindy sense rather than thinking of Ruben's deck as an unfair reanimation deck. We didn't see any reanimation we didn't see any reanimation actually resolve that game. And it's just, so like this black green deck, kind of like a mid-rangey, like grindy deck, and I could see you not wanting to have a card that doesn't provide that much value in that matchup. But yeah, if it does come down to the reanimation access, it will be a little awkward to not have access to that.
Yeah, we'll see, of course, if Jesse was just hiding that card or was big braining us, saying it's not really needed. So looking at the hands now, okay, both hands look a lot better than they were, for this last game. A MOCS down below from Jesse, so all these 3-drops are coming down a turn early, and just a solid functional hand. I want to say I thought I saw a mulligan there from Ruben, but even on 6, this would be a solid one.
Yeah, it's not exciting. The Necromancy and Red 6 are looking really awkward with no way to put anything in the graveyard, but I mean, turn 1 Birds of Paradise, about all you can hope for on a mulligan, and Red and 6 plus Zeotora's Proving Ground is at least something of an engine as the game goes longer.
Yeah, I'm all for it. Get that value going for sure. I thought we were going to bottom that right away, and I'm like, what are you talking about? We're going to be cycling for days. But yeah, of course, it is a little brutal if that's how you're spending all your turns. On the flip side, Jesse picks up a land, has a MOCS available if he wants to cast it, doesn't feel the need so far. We'll assuredly cast it next turn. And we'll see where we go from here.
Yeah, this is, I mean, I really like not playing out the MOCS, given we've seen Pest Infestation. That's clearly the correct play in this spot. It's a little awkward that none of your cheap things are actually threats. That these, that like MOCS Sapphire is not going to let you play a 3-drop of some sort that's kind of taking over the game.
Yeah, that is very true. We can do Spell Seeker to get a Reanimate or something like that, or just get a card advantage spell. But yeah, nothing too amazing by any means. But a turn 3 Pyrogoyf, I'm here for that. Of course, our graveyard isn't that stocked, but still always solid.
It will be at some point. I wonder whether we'll see this Tishano Sidebinder maybe counter a White of Precinct 6 activation. Yeah. That would be really nice for Jesse. One of the ways I could see him kind of capitalizing on this fast mana, because otherwise the start is looking pretty awkward into what Ruben has going on. But Ruben's going to start getting value, getting Planeswalkers down, and Jesse's just kind of wasting his mana every turn. It's not what you want to be doing.
Yeah, and it's like, wow.
Yeah.
Pyrokinesis, just 2 for 2, I guess, here, but...
Yeah, just taking the clean, getting rid of 2 cards here makes sense. We saw that there wasn't a powerful 3-drop from Ruben last turn, and I have to imagine that's part of the calculus. Like, you see Ruben has 3 mana, can only spend 2 of it, so clearly doesn't have a powerful 3-drop in hand. So if there's another land drop for this turn, there's not going to be a powerful 3-drop coming down then either, and that makes Pyrokinesis kill 2 creatures much more appealing to me, since you're not going to worry about a big haymaker this turn from Ruben.
Yeah, it looks good, especially when we know Ruben's hand, as that shut down a lot of avenues. The Proving Ground, we held it to be able to do the cycling trick instead of just playing it last turn. It's going to be a bit of a cost there. I totally would have done the same, try to get that value going, as, I think Ruben was a little behind with the mulligan, but now you have to play it, and that means you can't play Red and 6 this turn. But Deathrite Shaman, a perfectly reasonable card. And wow, Dark Ritual and the Epiphany. What are we going to do with those? Just draw a bunch of cards?
Yeah, I would not be surprised to see Occult Epiphany for 5 here. Make a pile of tokens, set yourself up to have a really powerful 2 cards left.
Yeah, looks sweet to me. That is a pretty messed up card as well.
Yeah, the rate on Occult Epiphany also pretty high. Not like not a snowbally threat like some of these other cards, so maybe a tier below some of the other things we've seen that kind of just win the game on their own, but still just a card I am very happy to have.
Yeah, no kidding. It's not card advantage, so, there's nothing too crazy going on there. Looks like we don't even want a Dark Ritual, just 3 spirits, 3 lands, or 3 mana sources essentially go into the yard, and you get to sculpt your hand a little bit. That's the good news. The bad news is those draws were horrific.
Yeah, and I believe there's only going to be 2 spirits because there's only 2 god types among the cards discarded.
Oh, yep. Of course. All right, so a Metamorph coming down. You can do a little bit of copying here, maybe counter a Spell Seeker. But, we don't have the best thing that we can go get.
I believe the best target left is Reanimate, which is not very good into Deathrite Shaman.
Oh, wait, yeah. I mean, we can just get 4th Aerolingus, right?
Oh, right, yeah.
Yeah, I was like, this card... Yeah, I was like, this card always gets Time Walk for me, but I'm like, it's a 4th Aerolingus card here for sure, too. I guess you Windmill Slam that one, huh?
Yeah, it's easy to forget when 4th Aerolingus so frequently gets cast for like 5 or 6 mana, but it is a 2 mana card.
Yeah, it doesn't get cast for 2 very often, although I have done it. Just to get it. When I already had a 1-drop, I was like, all right, I'll take the Monarch here, sure. All right, so yeah, just a almost impossible thing to come back from a next turn 4th Aerolingus for 4. Like, what does this Golgari deck even do, to something like that? It just seems like completely game over to me already.
It goes to round 2 is I think most of what it does.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that is so true.
It's a pretty tough spot. Just like even setting the Monarch aside, there's just so much power and toughness being put into play that's really hard for me to imagine Ruben coming back from this, because a lot of Ruben's top end is just completely uncastable right now, right? A lot of how Ruben closes out the game, the haymakers in his deck are things like Ugin and Archon, which are just not even remotely castable, several turns off of being castable. So how do you even really come back from a spot like this?
Yeah, that's kind of the problem just of Ruben's deck in general. Like, it's a perfectly fine mid-range style deck, but there's no huge close the door card like Jesse has. The 4th Aerolingus, the Spell Seeker to find it, Metamorph copying Spell Seeker to find more good stuff like that. Everything looks great. I was going to be curious if we even pressured Renin 6. Looked like it was important enough. Now we get to start drawing some cards, and we have some creatures to play defense on the way back to prevent Ruben from getting the Monarch. I guess if you attack with both Deathrite and Cankerbloom, the blocks are a little awkward, and maybe Ruben can draw 1 card, but sure, draw 1, double block the Cankerbloom or whatever. It seems totally reasonable.
Yeah, I mean, for Jesse, I'd even pretty happily jump block both creatures, yeah. I think
Probably
you just have, 9 more points coming back at Ruben. You're drawing an extra card on your turn as well. And, yeah, I just don't really see a Ruben coming back from this position.
Yeah, looks like Jesse has taken your advice. Double chump, values the card and the Monarchy a little bit more, and that makes sense. If there was any sweeper or anything, that would just be a train wreck. And I believe there is a Toxic Deluge, I think. So, like, imagine if Ruben got the Monarch and then Deluge and just keeps the Monarch for at least 1 turn. That would be some bad news bears, but that's not happening. And we have either a Rabble Master, Tidebinder, or a Fairy Mastermind as the follow-up, and just a Worldly Tutor there from Ruben.
Yeah, and I think this game is over enough that it's not really going to matter, and we might not see it. But I really would have loved to see Deshado's Sidebinder countering the triggered ability of the Monarch changing hands.
Oh, yeah, there we go. See, I wanted to see Tashana, counter the ability of Necromancy. I think that would have been nice as well, but yeah, I guess Tidebinder's just going to have to hang out and win the game from the hand, it looks like. As Ruben falls to 4, Jesse draws another card with the Monarchy. This Worldly Tutor, what are we going to get? Any creature that even matters?
I don't think so. Ruben's deck is like much more cares about like 2-3 card combos or packages, where like Archon doesn't really do anything on its own. There's an 8 mana card in spots like this. If you had a reanimation spell, if you had a way to put it into graveyard with the reanimation spell in hand, that would be like an entirely different story. But yeah, without that, I don't believe there's anything in Ruben's deck that's going to be saving him here.
Yeah, I would agree. And it's not even fair. If Ruben were to get the Monarch, Jesse has the ultimate counter to that. And it's just very mastermind to be like, fine, if you're going to draw a card, I am as well. And then I'm going to take the Monarchy back.
Yeah, 1 mana off of casting Abomination here, I think, for Ruben. So
Yeah.
that's certainly not helping.
Yeah, so put that on top, and then we'll just probably understand that this game is over. I guess you can Necromancy, but no. All right, Slacks wins the match here, advances to 1-0 in the draft, and that looked pretty easy, kind of there from Jesse. I think Jesse had the deck advantage, and it really showed in that match, wouldn't you think?
Yeah, like the matchup may be the sort of matchup Ruben wanted to play, but fundamentally the difference in power level and decks means Jesse is going to be favored there, and we saw that pan out. Just really, really strong deck and showed. Well, really well drafted by Jesse too.
Yeah, absolutely. So we got another backup match here ready for you. And I got to say, this is basically a feature match here. I mean, well, it's of course a feature match, but this is basically like what could be looked at as the finals here. Both of these players' decks, I think, were very much on the high end. We got Nathan of the Guilt Leaf here on the left. That was that incredibly awesome Boros deck. And then Yuki, the tournament favorite here. Yuki's been playing the game for 15 years. Only 3 years from Nathan, but wow, what an accomplishment to get here already. And 23,000 lifetime matches played from Yuki at a 61% win rate. Yuki also plays, plenty of decks for the content, as, Yuki does some streaming as well. So that win percentage, I think, would be even higher if he was playing only the best decks. Qualified via Open number 2, so took down one of those gigantic sealeds, and Legacy Showcase qualifier there from Nathan. So Nathan's definitely used to playing with some of these old cards. Let's dive on in. We're going to be going into game number 2 where Nathan already took it down. I suppose we'll take a look at these lists first. What do you say about that? Take a look at this Boros list that you thought might be the winner here, Arya.
Yeah, so this is, I think, in my eyes, pretty clearly the strongest deck at the table in terms of, like, raw rate, or at least in competition. There's so many strong decks here. But yeah, just full of haymakers, and I mean, I'm gonna spoil a bit of what we're gonna be looking at with Yuki's deck, but this is kind of exactly the sort of matchup you want to play, where this deck maybe is a little softer, like really, really fast combo decks, but yeah, Nathan's deck really lines up well against any mid-range or controlling deck, because your haymaker threats are just so plentiful and run away with the game so easily. So this is basically the deck that will beat up any mid-range deck, and the only thing that it will like fall to sometimes is combo decks.
I feel like this is just tale as old as times, Arya. Every time we do one of these MOCSs, it's always like, wow, this deck looks so cool. This deck's big brain. This is cool. And then it's like, all right, we got the gut red deck, which is going to 3-0, 6-0 very easily. And I wouldn't be shocked if this is the case again from Nathan Goldberg. This deck looks amazing. Now let's take a look at, I would say, our tournament favorite, Yuuki Ichikawa, playing a solid Esper mid-range deck. But I'm with you, Arya. Like, there are some amazing cards in here, but I would be very afraid of some of those quick draws from Nathan's deck with this.
Yeah, the matchup is just pretty tough for Ichikawa, where it's really hard to... It's really hard for decks for games to pan out in a way that works. I mean, you have the haymakers like the One Ring and Psychic Frog that can take over games. You're really hoping to draw cards like that. But stuff like Spell Pierce, Mana Drain, even Counterspell Mana Drain, a little slow, a little clunky, particularly when you're on the back foot against things like Ocelot Pride and the Mana Crypt start. So tough matchup, definitely, for sure. So even though Ichikawa's deck is like a really strong version of this deck, just, yeah, the rate of the cards and the way they play against each other definitely favors Nathan here.
And I would say we saw that Luris pretty early in pack 1. I bet Yuki had the Luris companion deck up until the point where it's like, the One Ring. I'm not going to not play that. So that probably came in here. But otherwise, I could see cutting Fallen Shinobi and Monastery Mentor to get that companion, but I am never cutting the One Ring. So makes a lot of sense. Yuki's like, well, I have a good Luris deck. I'm just throwing it in the main deck here. Why not? So let's dive in. We do have Nathan up a game, so we're heading into game number 2 between these two players. Looks like we have a mulligan up top for Yuki, so really bad start here, and we'll see if that's a keep here from Nathan. If it is, this is truly heart of the cards.
Yeah, this is a tough one. I might consider keeping this on 6, but it's really hard to keep on 7.
Oh, all right. Didn't keep it, and this hand looks much better.
What a hand.
Oh my goodness, Mana Crypt, you are right. That should just have the Boros color pie on it. It looks so good in this hand. All right, so we have the bauble cracked. We're going to play a land here. But, I mean, Nathan's going to be able to go Giver into Scarlet on turn 2. And that just seems so good.
Yeah, just Giver into Scarlet into Atari is just so messed up. Magda, maybe even more messed up because now you have yet another snowball card that wins the game on its own.
Yeah, good point. Yeah, for Magda, do we have anything to, like, sack the treasures in this list? Is there anything sweet like that? Or is it just, you know, a good card?
It's just a mana advantage. Like, the treasures at outputs are really, really hard to keep up with. And in this spot specifically, it's gonna let Nathan threaten Headliner Scarlet plus Giver in the same turn.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I guess we do have one Glorybringer to find, too. You know? That's not so bad.
Yeah, I mean, I extremely doubt that Ichikawa is gonna live long enough to find that out.
Yeah, that's fair. All right, well, this looks like an absolute beating already. And it's like, sure, we have a removal spell here that's pretty much forced, you know, otherwise you're just getting destroyed. But now Nathan gets to draw that extra card. This treasure comes in, so you can get, you know, your Giver of Ruins into play to protect your gigantic Phoenix. And man, this next turn is going to be devastating for Yuki. And oh no, Yuki's hand just looks awful.
Yeah, I think the game might just be over.
Wow.
Such as the way of Boros and Boros stacks with Mana Crypt. I think Ichikawa's one out there was to try and find a creature of some sort that would let him ninjutsu in that Fallen Shinobi, maybe try and find something really strong off of Nathan's deck. But yeah, without that, Atari next turn comes down. That's 7 damage, and I believe that's lethal damage the turn after, all with Giver of Ruins backup. So yeah, seems pretty over.
Wow, just playing Glorybringer here instead. I guess playing around a counter spell maybe. But, you know, just like, whatever. I'm going to win with either of these powerful flyers.
You see, the thing is, this is also lethal next turn.
Yeah, exactly. Both are lethal, so maybe don't, you know, kind of show off you're better of the flyers. But, man, yeah, it's going to be hard to argue with Nathan, you know, doing very well in this Vintage Cube draft.
Yeah. We might actually see a line that ends up not quite being lethal because the Giver of Ruin might need to attack, might not be able to attack.
Okay. Oh, there's a Snapcaster. Okay, looks like the hand is maybe off by one thing. That makes a lot more sense.
Okay, so the Snapcaster off screen, that changes things because that is exactly kind of the line we talked about where Ichikawa can win, which involves Fallen Shinobi stealing something really good off of Nathan's deck to get Ichikawa back into this game.
Okay, that makes sense. So yeah, we can see if we can get our production to put that card, slide that hand over a little bit. Give us the full picture on that one. And here is Fallen Shinobi. Let's see what we can hit. Okay, the good dog, is that going to be enough? Doesn't look like it. Glorybringer can just exert, right?
Glorybringer can exert and kill the Fallen Shinobi. Atari is going to come down and represent a bunch of damage. Actually, this is probably lethal, right?
Yeah, because we attack, you get the 2/2 creature, you get to exert this. I guess you can get in with the Giver as well. Why
that's
not?
Lethal. You exert on the Philia, and that should be exactly 12 damage.
Incredible. Plus the Guide of Soul, you're going to be gaining some life, getting some extra energy, and good mulligan on Nathan there, giving up that, you know, all mountain hand that, you know, probably wasn't going to get there, to just having a Mana Crypt and looking like your deck just cannot be beaten. So that's going to be continuing on. Of course, Yuki's still going to be playing and is going to get some more money and stuff like that, but that will be Yuki eliminated from being one of the 3-0 people. That matchup play out how you thought, Arya?
Yeah, I mean, pretty much exactly even. Where the power level for Ichikawa's deck was really high. It's really strong for that sort of deck, but that genre of deck is always going to struggle into these Boros aggro decks that play these cheap snowbally threats, getting under your counter spells, and has just a sheer magnitude of threats that close out the game really quickly that you can't really compete with. I mean, this is why I believe Nathan's deck is the best one at the table. This is why it got that 9.5, is their starts like this are so unbeatable and like on par with like the reanimation curves in terms of how quickly you're taking over the game. So there's really, really powerful stuff from the Boros deck, and in a way that wasn't really like interactable with like Graveyard Hate or a single counter spell or something like that.
Bingo.
Just incredibly strong.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say too. It's like, yeah, the reanimate stuff, it can be absurdly busted if you get the right things, but you have to have the right draws. And the Boros deck, you have to have the right draws, but a lot of your cards fill the same kind of role. And the whole role of get your opponent dead doesn't matter if you have a turn 1 gut or you have, you know, any one of your turn 1 3 drops is probably going to get it done. So yeah, deck looks great there for Nathan, and we'll see how this, you know, really lays out here in the following round. We're going to take ourselves a short break, and on the other side, we'll be right back for round number 2 to see who our finalists are going to be in this Vintage Cube draft here at the Magic Online Champion Showcase. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.